Yeah, good morning. I'm here today with Alicia Spence, the head of services.
Director of Services.
Apologies, Director of Services at the African Caribbean Community Initiative. Good morning. Oh, well, it could be good morning, could be good afternoon, could be evening, or good night.
Good day.
Good day. So, Alicia, tell me a bit about yourself and your journey to working with ACCI.
Right. You want to know a bit about myself?
Yeah, and do
How long have you got?
a whole day.
All right then.
Yeah.
Because I have to go to work.
Oh, yes.
Right. Okay. Well, largely, you probably know you don't know that my parents, as with a lot of other people, the parents came ahead in 1965. My brother and I joined my parents here in Wolverhampton. And I started going to Penn Secondary Modern, it was called. I think it's equivalent to the present day Colton Hills. And, you know, the thing that struck me, I always tell people when I got to school.
How difficult the school was.
It was so easy in comparison to leaving school in Jamaica. Because you weren't doing anything. It's basics in that RAT, RAT, CAT, CAT. And I actually remember writing to one of my friends back home and saying, try and come to England because school is so easy, you know. And
yeah, on the back of that, if I just come in, recently there was a documentary about the
ESN?
ESN.
But
so would you have been put into an ESN?
I, along with nearly all of us who came from the Caribbean, were put into ESN, education is subnormal. Classes or like special class, you know, children who have learning disability, you would say nowadays.
Yeah.
And there was this assumption with us that we all had a learning disability, which was quite frustrating, but it was good because I would do my work in no time and then I'd spend my day just chatting really. As you know, I'm quite a talker.
No.
And so I just thought, oh my life, you know, I wish my friends would come and we could have an easy school.
Okay, so did any of your friends that you wrote to, did any of them end up in the UK?
No, they didn't. None of them. Some of them went to Canada, but none of them really, the ones that I was close to, actually came at my invitation. No.
Okay.
But
right.
And so at the time, and I think it was difficult for our parents to understand what was happening in the education system because it was this thing: go to school, listen to the teacher, do your work, put your head to your book, and you'll be all right. And eventually I got moved out of the class really because I was bordering on being a bit disruptive, I think. So.
No one could ever accuse you of being disruptive.
Yeah, it was just sheer boredom.
Yeah.
But interestingly, as you said, that documentary a couple of weeks ago, which Bernard Cord had written the book, How the West Indian Child is Made Educationally Subnormal. And I was actually at that conference.
Oh.
Yeah. Much later on in the 70s when the conference was held, because I think by that time, I understood what had happened to myself, happened to my other friends, and what was continuing to happen to black children within the education system. And so I moved up, and at the time I thought, I had this notion that I'd like to be a teacher, because coming from the Caribbean, you know, you're a nurse or a teacher or something like that. And I thought, teacher. Well, of course, at that time, you know, black girls weren't really, or not just girls, black children, Caribbean children weren't allowed to dream that they could become a teacher.
Okay, so did you have any careers advice before you left school? Did you have careers classes and did they?
They probably did, but it was nursing. So I thought,
that's what they pushed you towards.
Yeah, but not only that, it wasn't because at the time the nurse training you had two tiers. You had your state enrolled nurse, which is your practical bedside nurse, which has which had no career path at all. Once you were an SEN, you were always an SEN. You couldn't get promotion. You were the one.
So it's like glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had state registered nurse, which is one where you could get promotion, become a ward sister or a matron. And invariably, all of the black girls, probably without maybe an odd exceptional one, we were put in, when we went to Bilston College to do the pre-nursing course, because that's what you had to do, we were all put into the pre-nursing number 2, which was the one for the state enrolled nurse. And all people were saying to you, you want to be a nurse, you want to be practical, you want to be with the patient. That was how they kind of did the marketing of it. And not knowing any different and understanding the kind of career limitations, you just went along. I think it was, you kind of did the pre-nursing, then you went to the hospital to do your training, and you realized that, all the black girls, again, we were all the SEN. So a number of us had to eventually, we had to be registered in a kind of a long way, because you did your state enroll, then you had to go and do further training and things like that. Whereas, say, other people just did their state registered training and were able to get promotion. But, today is not about the NHS and the racism. So, because I could spend a long time talking about that. So that's how so after I did my state enrolled nurse training at Warsaw, then I went up north, did my registered nurse training, did my learning disability. So in the end, I kind of studied all 3 branches of nursing.
What are, for the people like me?
General nursing, learning disability nursing, and mental health nursing.
Is that still the same now?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the training is different, but it's still that, you train to work with people with learning disability, or because it's a specialist field in terms of understanding their needs and things.
Yeah.
But I liked working with that group, because I suppose I've always been someone who has a distaste for injustice. And I know that people with learning disability, black or white, aren't treated well. But obviously when you're black, then it's worse. But mental health has always been my passion. And so my involvement with ACCI, as you probably know, Wolverhampton Rasta Progressive Association, back in the 80s. WRPA, who were rightly so concerned at the disproportionate numbers of African Caribbean people, all their brethren who they were seeing in the mental health system. And really, you would know, because you probably would have been too young, back in the 80s, where you had a lot of kind of first generation born in this country facing racism, lack of opportunities, police brutality, lack of career opportunities, and also a lack of an identity. Because what was happening, the parents were saying to them, "You are British, it's here you're born." But Britain wasn't ready to accept these children born here, so they were facing racism. So there was
was it the Tebbit test when he asked which team he would support?
Yes,
right.
That's it.
I do kind of remember the 80s.
Yeah, and so a lot of young black people then began to identify with Rastafarianism as a way of a sense of identity, because if they were born here and were told no, and there's this rejection, so a lot of them became Rastafarians. That invariably put them into conflict with their families.
Yeah.
Particularly, we're largely Christian households and persuasion. So these children become Rastafarian and chanting Jah Rastafari and Selassie. It wasn't going down very well with the parents. They started to lock up. That certainly wasn't going down.
I'm not certain that the barbers enjoyed that time either.
They probably did. And so the parents were saying, you know, to a lot of them, it's either the locks go or you go. And some of them said, no, I'm not cutting my locks. This is who I am. This is my identity. But sadly, a lot of them weren't equipped to go and live independently. And at that time, it was very easy to get a flat from the council. You would go up there this morning and literally within a week, you know, you could get a flat. So a lot of them got flats. But as I said, they didn't have the skills to kind of manage independently, living on their own and all the responsibility that go with it. And police brutality, that's another podcast, another day. And, you know, there were issues with, you know, ganja, because, you know, a lot of them were getting criminalized because they had a draw weed on them.
Okay, and for people who are not sure what ganja is that the same as cannabis?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. So, you know, and so that was part of a big part of the problem at the time. And so that's just to give a quick background as to, you know, how WRPA came around. It's that kind of background. So they did a lot of good work to start with in terms of providing opportunities for young people who are really largely disenfranchised. The rest of the project closed, but the one bit which remained alive was ACCI and the mental health side. I wasn't involved at that stage. I knew lots of individuals, and because of my mental health background, you know, I'd had conversations with a couple of the people, but I was kind of really working in the NHS at the time. But in 1993, I think I was asked to sit on the board, because there's a board of trustees of ACCI.
Okay.
And so
you were first of all a board member before?
Yes.
Okay.
And I sat on the board, and what was evident to me at the time is, in terms of governance and in terms of issues, there are a number of challenges, I should say. But then fast forward to 1994, the local authority who funded the service indicated that come the end of the financial year, March 95, that they were probably would no longer be funding ACCI, which means it would have closed. And there are a number of reasons for that. Some of it wasn't justified, but there were issues around governance and staffing. In fact, I was the fourth manager in 2 years. So if you have an organization, you have that kind of turnover of management, that it's an indication that something's not right.
So you're the fourth, but last to date.
Yes.
Which is from 93 to now?
No, 94.
94
Because it
now.
was what I had to do in 94 then was to step down. And the board at the time had asked me to as well. So I resigned off the board. And I was working in the health service.
I was just about to ask you, when I knew you were working in the health
NHS.
service.
Yeah, my full-time job at the time, I was a manager within the mental health service, managing a service for people with learning disability and mental health problems. And so I had to make a decision then, you know, because I'd been thinking for a long time. I've gone in the health service, I've worked for how many years, I've acquired some skills. I really need to transfer these skills to my community. But invariably, there's always a financial penalty, and we have to be realistic. And the one thing that I used to think, well, will I be able to manage financially, you know, if I give up that salary? I did in the end, because I felt it was a sacrifice worth making, because I thought, if we don't save ACCI now, we'll never be able to revive it again it will be another good service, lost. So I left the health service. And in June 94, I started working at ACCI.
There you go. June 94, and we're now in June 2021.
Yes. And so, like I said, the rest is history. So I've been there since 1994. And I mean, obviously, when I started, there were a number of very basic issues that had to be dealt with. But I was confident, that I had to make some financial sacrifices. The board gave a commitment that they would try, and sort that out. But, it wasn't as easy as that, because at that time, we just relied on funding from the local authority. I mean, we're commissioned, because you're into commissioning service.
I don't understand commission and funding.
People buy our service. We have to tender for it. Yeah. But also, there are other ways of bringing money in. And so, when I started at ACCI, there was myself and 3 other staff. But for me at the time, one of the challenges was about engaging with the community, because I felt that one of the most important part of my role in order to ensure ACCI's survival was to get the community to own it, to feel a part of it. Because the service were there and their family members were coming, but it's as if there was a disconnect. So
was that disconnect really based around the Rastafarianism? And
that was part of it, and not just that. Even as far as a lot of members of our community were concerned, it's this ganja. It's a ganja psychosis. Because at the time, one of the diagnoses for a lot of black people, ganja psychosis, and so you used to get situations where even if a white person was using cannabis or ganja, as they do, just like we do, and they presented their diagnosis, that was never was that the label given to them. There would be an assumption that it was something else.
So was that an official label that was used?
More or less, yeah. Ganja psychosis. If you look back, they don't write that in now. They may put substance misuse, because alcohol is as bad, if not worse. I'm not here to promote either, but there has to be that recognition that when we talk about substance misuse, that alcohol and different forms of drugs. So there wasn't that ownership with the community, because I felt that whatever was happening to particularly our young men, they brought it on themselves. So part of our thing was to do some promotional stuff and raise awareness around the injustices and things that was happening in mental health with black people. They're being over-medicated, being sectioned more than anybody else, being restrained, dying in mental health. All those things were happening, and the community needed to be made aware and know that unless we stand up and challenge, then this abuse really would continue.
And was it also a situation where people were, if it didn't affect them, they weren't really...
Oh, yeah, because it was somebody else, mad pitney, you know what I mean? Yeah. Until it was at their doorstep. But you see, mental illness is such that there isn't one of us that don't have a family member that's affected by mental illness. There isn't. Yeah. I'm sitting here and there's lots of family members, people, some diagnosed, some not diagnosed. So no, but seriously, it's so that was a challenge, and also to build a relationship with the members, as we call them. you know.
So they're not service users, they're not clients.
No, they're members, because we're a family. That's the ethos, you know. Because for me, ACCI, one of the things I say, we don't work with diagnosis, we work with people. So we're not really interested if you're a bipolar or a schizophrenic or whatever. You're a human being. You're somebody's brother, somebody's child, certainly somebody. And therefore we work with the individual, not the diagnosis.
So we would say there's more of a holistic approach.
Yeah, when people come into the centre. And, you know, one of the things that quite often would happen sometime if people are becoming unwell and professionals are inclined to say, have you taken your medication? You know, my thing is, don't ask that question. My thing would be, did you sleep well all right? Did you sleep all right last night? Anything bothering you? Have you had a cup of tea from one? That's how you start the conversation, because then that's about that person's well-being. So they can think you care. But if all you're going to ask them, did you take your medication? Because quite often they take it and they don't want to. So, you know, I mean,
so it's a less aggressive approach.
It's a more humane.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not less, it's more. But it's it's not a negative, it's more positive.
Yes.
So really it's about, I care about you. Did you sleep well? Yeah. Have you had something to eat? Has somebody upset you? I mean, you'll probably eventually get back to that question, you know, so all right. But then there comes a juncture where it's okay to ask that question. But if that's a first point of contact, it's not good. And so that's, you know, the kind of ethos and value.
Yeah, you're quite right. Because, you know, I mean, if you see someone and you don't even acknowledge them, say, hi, how you doing? And you just sort of say, have you taken the medication? It's almost as if you've disregarded who they are as a person, as opposed to say, not even say, good morning.
No, because all you're seeing is a diagnosis. That's why you'll ask them about the medication. Because you have to have a diagnosis in order to have the medication.
Yeah.
So when your first point of contact is, have you taken your medication? You're looking at a diagnosis, not a person. And so for me, you know, that's part of my kind of whole ethos about how we need to work with people. You know, I've, over the years, when I've given talks at conferences, and, you know, people have said to me, or even locally, what is the ACCI? Not the model, but what it is, why ACCI work. I can't quite think of the word. And all you can say is humanity, to treat people like you would want to be treated. And if you do that, you don't get it wrong a lot of the times. You know, things aren't always going to go smoothly, because if somebody's unwell and they're paranoid and they're seeing things or hearing things, it's not. But if you can just not focus so much on the negatives, but more on letting them believe, as we should care for them, you know. So that was a big thing for me when I started to get that.
So you started with that straight away. That was one of the first things you.
It was always my thing, because I'd always worked with people with learning disability or mental health. And within, I mean, they say those are the Cinderella services, a special learning disability. That's a Cinderella service in the NHS. So I've always worked with that client group that I felt were treated badly. It wasn't a level playing field. So, plus on a personal level, I don't like injustice. That's me, you know, and so where I see it, I'll try and stamp it out, or I'll certainly do what I think needs to be done, because again, I believe in leading from the front. You know, I don't believe in saying, don't do this, and then I do the opposite. I don't believe in that. Right.
God, wait, what's a rush? Gotta go to work.
I gotta go to work. I like being at work. Right. In terms of some of the high points, I think for me, building the relationship with our members, with their families, is very important to me, because if the beneficiaries of the service see no value in it, or you don't have a relationship with them, then, this kind of, you're doing unto rather than doing with. But a couple of kind of high points. It was, as I said, I started in 1994, and one of the things I felt was important, we started talking about a holiday and going to Africa. And I think for a lot of people in our services who were first generation blacks, who didn't have a sense of identity, and everybody was going, to Jamaica. And I felt, no, I needed to do something different. We needed to touch base with the motherland. And so we started fundraising and planning a trip. And we planned our first trip to Africa from ACCI, where 10 of us went in 1996. So that was 2 years after I came into pause. It was a major. So
within 2 years of start as a, you went to
Yes.
Africa.
Of course. Oh, yes. And even to this day, some of the members who went with us still talk about that experience. Because what it did for a lot of the people born in this country, people talk about minority. We know we're not a minority. But in this country, you may be a visible minority, and you're being told you're a minority.
Yeah.
And so you probably feel minor and feel smaller. And going to Gambia, where there was just a sea of black people, gave a lot of people a sense of being a majority, because for them, seeing so many black people in one place, wherever they went, in the banks, if they had to go to the doctor, wherever they went, seeing all these black people was truly a phenomenal experience for them, and brought some kind of healing and a sense of identity, and that. So that was.
And how were the staff that travelled? How many staff members did you bring with you?
There were 3 staff.
3 staff and 7
members.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it was. One of the members that we took is somebody who's got learning disability and mental health problem, and the rest of them are people with mental health problems. So it was, yeah.
I'm not saying you get away with 3 to 1, 3 to 7 now.
Why not? It was a new experience.
It's.
No. What would you need? We need a higher ratio of staff.
Yes.
1-to-1.
Wouldn't they want to go? They want to go. The centre will be closed.
Yeah, 1-to-1. Wait, that wasn't the only time in 2005.
Okay.
There was another trip.
Where was that to?
Gambia. We've had 2 trips to Gambia from ACCI. I'm telling you, I know. I didn't go on the second one. I didn't think I needed to.
Wow.
Yeah, we've done it twice. And the second.
I missed that one.
And in fact, so the second one, carers went along as well as members.
That's what I'm saying. So I said the first time was, yeah.
Right. So that was one of the high moments. Another thing, in 1999, which was 5 years after I was imposed, we won an NHS Beacon Award. And Frank Dobson was the health minister then. And he had this idea that he wanted to have like a what is it, Oscar, almost like, you know, you have the Oscar award.
Yeah.
So he wanted an Oscar type thing for the NHS for services to try and promote, you know,
Good practice. Yes.
And we were certainly the only black service nationally that got an NHS Beacon Award, and that was for working in partnership and collaboration with the local trust, local hospital, also being innovative. Although I sometimes have a problem with the word innovation, because sometimes they use it that often. You think, well, how often can you innovate? You know, you need to consolidate at some point, right? But anyway, so we got that, and with that, it bought, I think it was about 60,000 at the time.
A significant amount.
Significant amount of money.
Even that would be, I suppose.
Yeah, and it was unrestricted, which is good. Because quite often, sometimes when you get funds, it's restricted, but that we could spend it whichever way in the service. So that was another. I mean, there's been many. I think it was 201. We had Denise Welsh from Coronation Street.
No, the story about Denise Welsh. Yeah. So she came to the centre, and were you speaking to Denise? You had a conversation.
Yeah.
And what can you tell me about the conversation with Denise?
What can you tell me?
What can you tell me?
You tell me.
No, you tell me. Don't you recall that she assumed that you might have known who she was?
Yeah.
And do you watch Coronation Street?
No.
Oh, so you didn't know who she was?
No, I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, because she speaks quite a lot about
mental health.
health.
Yeah. Because it was screened, wasn't it?
Oh, I didn't know that. I never saw it.
Yeah. But so that was, and then, you know, another highlight for me was when I was called as expert witness to a public inquiry for David Bennett. People have heard about the David Bennett inquiry. There's this young black man that was restrained and died in a mental health private hospital down south, and there was a public inquiry, and I was asked to be an expert witness. So that was, you know, that for ACCI, because that was about me as it's about the organization's reputation.
Well, I didn't know about that inquiry.
Yeah.
And quite a few people will not have heard of it.
David, they can Google it, the David Bennett inquiry.
I will now.
I don't know the title, but it's a very good report.
Yeah.
In what can go wrong, because what happened shouldn't have happened, but it did. Yeah. And there's lots more, but those are just some of the highlights. You know, I can.
But it's good. But it's good to kind of acknowledge and celebrate the highlights, because I didn't know some of these things.
Yeah, and there's more.
And I've known you for a few years.
You have, and there's more that I could tell you, but we haven't got time today.
Are we going to do that another day? You got.
Yeah. I've got to go. But I think really, in terms of the service we offer, you know, we have supported accommodation. It's called the Omari, and that we've got a women's unit, we've got some flats.
So semi-independent.
And then we've got a women's unit, 24 hours supported. And all that, you know, it's important in terms of people's mental health and their recovery and restoration, because we don't just want people to recover, we want restoration for people, because people come with a history. You know, their life didn't just begin when they came into mental health service, and quite often people had, you know, relationships, jobs, all kind of the things that we all take for granted.
Yes.
And so it has to be about where possible to try and help people to be restored. So, I often say to people, I don't know what it would be like not to know where I'm going to lay my head tonight. You can't conceptualize that tonight you won't know where you're going to go, because whatever happens out there, at least you have somewhere to go to. Whatever the circumstances is, that you can put but you imagine being homeless and just knowing that you're gonna probably catch a catch in a doorway tonight or something like that. And so, people's mental health can't improve whilst there is that
level of uncertainty
in their lives. And so it's important that housing, that accommodation, is there to help people on the journey to recovery, that it's safe, that it's secure, that it's warm, that kind of thing. So we've got that.
Can I just ask you a question? So when you came on board as a manager, how many staff were employed by roughly?
Right. There was myself and 3.
3.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many staff do ACCI employ now? Roughly.
About 32.
And are some of those people that volunteer as well, or they're not counted as part of the 32?
No, those are paid staff.
So you started from 3. It's now 30.
About 32.
About 32 staff, plus volunteers.
Oh Lord, yeah. We have. I don't think without volunteers, our service, would have developed the way it has, or could be sustained. We rely on volunteers, and we have some good volunteers. The board of trustee, which they're tasked with a big responsibility in terms of governance and accountability, and they're all volunteers. In some organizations, trustees get paid. None of our trustees get paid or seek to be paid, and they work very, very hard. I tell people all the time I'm very fortunate that I work for a very good board of trustees, very committed, very supportive, and very, very able. And so that really does help.
So that model.
Yes, it works.
Yes, it does.
So then we also have the counselling service. We have a holistic counselling service. And
other type of therapy as well,
and holistic therapy. So they do aromatherapy, Reiki, acupuncture, a range of things, plus the talking therapies. And we've had people, and just to say really that our service is specifically for African Caribbean, but not exclusively so, because people want good service. So we get referrals all the time. Obviously the service, the ethos and everything about the service is about meeting the needs of African Caribbean people, in terms of the food that we provide on a daily basis, the images around the center, because all that has to be about a positive reflection of who we are. But we have other members, Asian or white or whatever, who use our service, because it is about, everybody wants a good service, and so for us, it's not about treating anybody bad. It's that whoever comes through our door has a right to expect a good standard of service. And then we have the hub, where people come in during the day, the well-being hub. That's where people, obviously because of COVID and thing, it's, we've had to be COVID compliant. So we've had to reduce the numbers. We've had to put people in bubbles. I suppose we'll see what the 21st of June brings. But also with that, you still have to deal with the anxieties of some of our members who are still quite anxious about mixing. So what we had to do really was to start to do a lot of services virtually. So a lot of the group activities we're doing virtually. So we do a mix now. There's some that people come into the hub and others. And going forward, I think it's going to be that way, certainly for another year or so.
So COVID had a massive impact on the service you were able to provide.
It did, but I'm very pleased to be able to say we were one of the few services that didn't close throughout. We've never closed. At one point, when the COVID pandemic was at its peak last year, we opened 3 days a week. But then not long after, we went back to 4, then to 5. But we've never closed. There are other services that had shut their door. And because working with the client group that we do, I was just very mindful of the fact that their levels of anxiety would be increasing, the isolation, loneliness. And, I thought, as long as we do our risk assessment and, do what we need to do PPE-wise, because my thing was, well, the people in the supermarkets are more at risk. There's hundreds of people going by every day. They're having to work. Nurses are having to work. Police are having to work. There were lots of workers who had to work, and it
is an essential service.
We are an essential service, and I felt we owe it to them. But also we did things like throughout that, made sure that we were making daily phone calls and doing doorstop visits. So we'd go knock people's doors, stand back, make sure there's eyeball contact and that kind of thing. So, we have an outreach service as well, and they were very, very proactive and doing their visits and accompanying people wherever they had to.
Wow. So there, in what, 15-20 minutes is all about ACCI, the African Caribbean Community Initiative. Thank you very much.
There's lots more I could tell you.
I know, but you have to go to work. You get telling me.
Yeah, I have to go to work.
Listen, if I ask you a question, tell me something. Could you tell people who know you, may have known you for years, a useless piece of information about yourself? Something that they don't know.
Shy.
Eh?
That I'm shy.
An honest one as well.
Yeah, that I'm shy.
Really?
And people don't believe me. Are useful or useless?
Useless.
There's nothing useless about me.
A piece of information that is useless. It's you, but they don't need to know that. Something that people wouldn't know about you.
Do you know? You tell me.
I wish I did.
What do you know about me? Oh, Paul, that's difficult.
I know. Think about it.
Anger. Useless. Is what me like?
Yeah, something like that.
I'm shy.
There you go. So we've heard it first here today.
And when I said it to my sister, and she just keeled over laughing, I said, listen, I'm shy. Yeah. No, because what I want people to, you know me, I'm a very passionate about things.
Yeah.
And can I say something?
You can say, yes, you can.
Well, you got to edit.
Say whatever you want to say. I think I'll leave it in.
No. Yeah.
What? Y'all go edit.
Right. I think what I want to say is really in all of this, just to really big up the staff. I have very, very dedicated, hardworking staff group, people very committed and to provide a good. And there's so many supporters. One of the things which I did mention, which I should have done.
Yes, you should have.
Yes, was that, the World Mental Health Day event, which we have in conjunction every year with Jubilee Christian Center. For the last over 10 years or so, they've actually turned the church service over to us on that day in October, where we can, have a celebration of people who've experienced mental health distress. And I think that's really, really positive.
Oh, good. And what about the gala?
The gala. Oh, I don't want to talk about the gala. Yes. Well, our annual gala, which is...
Yeah.
It's second to none. It has been. And sadly, because of COVID mash you up. Right.
COVID did not discriminate.
And I'll tell you, that woman ain't missing that COVID.
Yeah.
So, obviously there won't be a gala this year. And we'll have to see what next year brings, because I think the thing with the gala, you need the numbers in order for the event to kind of be viable, financially viable, because of the cost of the room and stuff like that. So we'll have to see. And, we don't want to have a gala and put it outside the affordability of our community, because that's what it's about.
So you don't sell, seats for like 100 or 200 pounds.
Oh, no.
And this is so that so the members are able to attend.
Well, it's about the members, because it's about acknowledging their achievements throughout the year or the years, and it's an opportunity for them to dress up and come out and socialize with people who don't necessarily have a mental health diagnosis. Because one of the things with people with mental health issues is that they don't have many valued social relationships. They tend to just socialize with people who have mental health problems as well, or some of the ones we work with. And so that's an opportunity. Yeah.
And what was it? I remember you always used to say about one member would talk about, how they were made to feel by people who ignored them. One member, and they talked about people ignoring them, and they could always remember.
Yes. Yeah, I think, in fact, this was...
Yes.
It was somebody that we worked with.
Yes.
And it was when he was quite acutely unwell. And his behaviour wasn't what it normally would be, but I was able to engage with him and because I wasn't afraid of him, because I always say you cannot fear for anyone you're afraid of. You can't do it.
You can't care.
You can't care for anyone you're afraid of, because the fear paralyzes you. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be cautious or take, precautions. Don't put yourself in unnecessary risk. And I remember afterwards, it was after, and he was saying to me that he remembered how, and I said, so when you're kind of really at that level, very intense, and he said, you remember who talked to you, who didn't talk to you? Because what you remember, that I spoke to him. So I just started, because I really wanted to understand. And I thought, so for me, that was a lesson. And it's like, before I really reflected, earlier I spoke about when not asking members, have you taken your medication? And I probably should have. Working in the health service, that's the culture. That's what you're taught to do. You know, that's what you say to be able to take your medication. But I remember very, very early on, after I started working, and the one day I said that to somebody, and he said to me, if it's that good, why you not go take it? And that was my lesson. And it was then, and I thought, you're right. I shouldn't be asking you that. You know, and at that point, and this was quite early on when I started, I thought, you know, the learning needs to change. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're so when you started as a manager, you literally had to hit the ground running.
Yeah, I did.
So you had a short time where you had to save that service.
I had to.
You had no choice, but yeah.
Because I had to prove to them in the civic, those people in social services, that yes, we are capable of managing and providing a good service. But equally, we had to get the community and get the members on board. Because at one point, they were complaining as well about the service. So
Who was complaining about the service?
The members.
Okay.
Some of them, yeah. And some of it was justified. I won't go into it. But,
no, we don't have to, but I mean...
Some of it was justified. We needed to change it, so... Yeah?
Yeah.
And 94, 27 years. And people say to me, are you still at ACCI? And I said, where am I supposed to be?
Yeah, and this is sometimes 9, 10 o'clock at night.
All right. Don't talk my business. Don't talk my business.
Yeah.
Yes, but I really enjoy. I say to people, I really love my job.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get up any day and think, God, I've got to go to work.
But the thing is, but you don't call it work, do you?
Nah. It's my passion.
Yeah.
It's my vote. That's, I say to people, you know, that's what I was put on this earth to do. To serve my people. Not servitude, because sometimes people think they confuse service with servitude. I'm here to serve and to do so.
Yeah, but also talking about the head of service, you're head of services. But if you were to go into work, going to work tomorrow morning, and there was a spillage somewhere, would your attitude was what straight away? You don't call another member of staff.
No.
You just do it yourself.
No, it's my responsibility.
Even when it's not.
It is. I mean,
even when there's someone else who wants to do it.
Yeah, the staff will say, no, boss. And I say, no, me have 2 hands. No, I'll do it. That's me. Because it's not a problem.
Yeah.
If I have to think about doing it, it will be a problem.
Yeah.
But if I just do it automatically, I'm just doing what I think needs to be done.
Yeah.
Because equally, if I know somebody hasn't done it, I'm not a happy woman, and they'll know about it. You know, because it's about the people we're working with.
That's right.
It's about them.
And also because you do that, you think about you're not asking staff to do anything that you won't do yourself.
Never. No.
There's a model of good practice.
Yes. I have to lead from the front.
You do.
If I'm the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but we have some very good staff, and our members and carers, the carer support group.
Yeah.
Vibrant.
Hold on a
We
bit.
have the largest carer support group.
Right.
And you know something, to be honest, and I'm not being boastful, but it was not. ACCI is the largest. ACCI is the only black, or the largest black mental health service in this country. Not in Wolverhampton, not in the Midlands, in the country.
In the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's growing.
Yes.
It's growing.
And we've been going for 34 years.
34 years, yeah.
And hopefully we'll be around another 34 and 34. I mean, it's sad. It would be good if we didn't need to be around. but I think the need for this service will continue. And I mean,
there's a need for mental health services, full stop.
Yeah, because people are becoming less resilient, much more fragile, and post-COVID, there's going to be some serious fallout. Even people who hadn't previously experienced mental health issues, because I think we've all been affected, some more than others, but I think we're gonna see some fallout in the next few months, years, whatever. So sad, but the kind of cliches, look after yourself, be strong, and sometimes it's easier said than done. But we have to try and look at the positives. That we're alive. We may have our health challenges, but we can get about. Those of us who have a job, we have a job, we have a roof over our head. We can't go on holiday because the rating might change when you're there. So.
when you're on the plane.
Yeah. So, stay put. Can't guarantee the weather in this country, but it don't matter.
Got some nice weather today, though.
Yes. Yeah,
So we are blessed.
We are. Yeah. We are. And, when I used to give talks up and down the country, I always ended with, my acres of diamond.
No. Acres of diamond? No. Please explain to me.
All right.
Yeah.
And it's a true story about a couple of Americans who, obviously, everybody knows that Mother Africa is covered in diamonds and gold, even though people don't benefit from it. But so they sold up what they had, went to Africa and bought a farm in search of diamond. And they were there and they were searching, but they didn't know what a real diamond looked like. They thought, it was glistening like it is in the shop. Didn't know that real diamond is black. It's a black magic. And so they got frustrated and sold the farm. And it was bought by somebody else. And one day, this new owner took his animals to the stream for water. And standing there, could see a black stone. He picked it up and scratched it. And it was diamond. It was acres of diamond.
Okay. The story of the acres of diamond.
Yes. And so the moral is, if you don't know what a diamond looks like, you'll see one and not recognize it. And I use that when I talk about our members, that sometimes when you meet them, if they're unwell, they may be shouting, they may be cussing. Just try and see beyond that and see that diamond, that human spirit. Not just be judgmental about the shouting and the cussing. It's not pleasant for us. It's not pleasant for them either. It's just what they're going through. So always try and see beyond that. Thank you.
And with that, we want to say thank you very much. Where are you going over it?
We have to go to work.
Yeah. Thank you very much to Alicia Spence for today. Talk about ACCI, and look out for part 2.